We've already formed a quorum, and it's also time for us to start our meeting. So let's start. First of all, I'll invite you to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of October. Up to this moment, the Secretariat has not received any proposal for amendment. Can we have the minutes confirmed? All right. After the last meeting, the administration and our colleagues have sent in a number of letters as well as some papers from the administration in response. They're all set out on the agenda. Some may be of concern to you. So may I have your views first? If there are no comments, we'll follow up on the issues in future, like Route 3, Western Harbour Crossing, revenue, road networks, and so forth. Our next meeting will be held on the 20th of October. The administration, December, 20th of December. Our next meeting will be held on the 20th of December. And for the next meeting, the administration has proposed 2 items: vehicles and drivers licensing integrated data system for infrastructure enhancement project and replacement of mechanical ventilation fans and associated equipment at the Diamond Hill Station public transport interchange. Any comments? Our next meeting will be held on the 20th of December. If there are no further comments, I'll notify the administration that those will be the 2 items to be discussed at the next meeting. We have 3 discussion items today. Proposed retention of 3 supernumerary posts for the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, Universal Accessibility Program, as well as Central-Wan bypass and Island Eastern Corridor link. As we have a tight schedule, I would like members to agree to my arrangement in terms of timing. So please invite the officials to come in. I'd like to welcome Mr. Yao Xingmu, Under Secretary for Transport and Housing, and his colleagues, including Ms. Rebecca Poon, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Housing, Mr. Peter Lau, Director of Highways, Mr. Chao Chunhua, Project Manager from Highways Department, as well as Ms. Judy Chung, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing. Welcome all of you. Mr. Yao, if you're ready, please start. We have a tight schedule today, so please grasp your time well. Thank you, Chairman. Today we're here to introduce to members the Highways Department Works Management Division in relation to Hong Kong-Macao-Zhuhai Bridge. We'd like to retain 3 supernumerary posts, including 1 Principal Government Engineer, PGE, and 2 Chief Engineers. To start, from the starting date, that is the 1st of April, 1st of July 2014 to the 31st of December 2017. In accordance with the Hong Kong-Macao-Zhuhai Bridge and the latest development of the engineering works, we review the Directorate manpower level of the Road Management Division in order to duly supervise the works involved. We would like to have due support from members. With your support, on the 4th of December, we'll go to the Establishment Subcommittee of the LegCo for funding. With your approval, start on the 10th of January next year, we'll submit our proposals to the Finance Committee. I'd now like to defer to our Highways Department colleagues for a PowerPoint presentation on the latest progress of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge. Colleagues, our computer system may not be showing very clear images on the screen because this morning we spent a great deal of time on repairing it. So maybe in a moment you won't be able to see the PowerPoint slides easily. Who will do the presentation? Ms. Chong? Oh, Mr. Chow. Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to introduce to you the latest progress, the Hong Kong-Macao-Zhuhai Bridge. First of all, an overall report on the bridge, and then the main bridge, as well as the Hong Kong section of the bridge. The overall works project covers the following parts. From west to east, the green part, Zhuhai section, linking up to the orange part, that is the Zhuhai and Macau boundary control points. As for the red parts, about 30 kilometers of main span, with 23 kilometers of bridge and 7 kilometers of tunnel. Within Hong Kong territory, we have the yellow part, the Hong Kong Link Road, and the orange part, the Hong Kong boundary control point. The main span are built by Hong Kong, Guangdong, and Macau governments under joint venture. An authority was set up to build the bridge, the main bridge. The Bridge Management Authority has produced a video to introduce the design of the bridge, challenges facing the authority during construction. I'll use 4 minutes to present to you part of the video. Hong Kong-Macao-Zhuhai Bridge, about 30 kilometers long in full, with an artificial island, tunnel, as well as roads. 7 kilometers will be tunnel, and the remaining 23 kilometers will be a bridge. As there will be an interface between the bridge and the tunnel, on both sides there will be an artificial island. As for the whole project, is to be commissioned by the end of 2016. First of all, the artificial island, with steel cylinders for building an embankment, and then a hydraulic method to put the cylinders under sea, with a diameter of 22 meters, height 40 to 55 meters. Ocean-going vessels will bring materials from Shanghai to the site, the construction site. Now, let me introduce to you the prefabricated tunnel parts. Caissons with super tunnel caissons, prefabricated. In order to enhance efficiency, the contractor has built a very modernized factory on Guishan Island, about 7 nautical miles from the construction site. In February 2012, the factory started its operation with 2 production lines with perfect quality control. Every 2 months, 2 sections could be produced. Altogether, 33 mega caissons. And a standard tube will be 180 meters long, weighing about 80,000 tons, made up by 8 segments. Every segment is 22.5 kilometers long. Upon installation, these segments will be transported to Lindianyang for connection, and a number of technical issues have to be dealt with. One standard caisson is 80,000 tons, equivalent to a mid-carrier. and also affected by tides. And the area is the busiest part of Lingdingyang. The first installation work started in May this year, and 5 segments have already been successfully installed. Finally, the bridge works themselves. 3 segments will have to be built with 22 kilometers of the bridge on sea. Mechanical and automated processes are implemented. That is to complete 23 kilometers of bridge within 5 years. Now we have the interface with Hong Kong and Tuen Mun Chaklapok Link Road. Hong Kong boundary control point linking up with the Guangdong portion, and then through the southern part of the airport to the new reclamation site to the east of the airport island. Now from this you can see the Hong Kong section on sea. This is the connection with the eastern portion of the airport island. The 2 contracts have already started on the 31st of May 2012. Now, in the western waters of Hong Kong as well as the airport tunnel, boring have started on the escalated portions on sea. And then to the west of Kwun Keng Shan, reclamation had started. Now this is the airport waters, that is the water channels, and to the western part you see the boring works, and then this is the excavation works at Kwun Keng Shan. And then to the east of the airport you see the reclamation at the moment. Now I'd like to turn to the Hong Kong boundary control point. Now this is a simulated slide with clearance and immigration facilities, public transport interchange and so forth, to provide immigration services to passengers and freight. Now this is the terminal. Upon completion, 170,000 passengers could be cleared every day. Apart from basic immigration and clearance facilities, this terminal will have retail and catering facilities to facilitate passengers. Reclamation on the boundary control point of Hong Kong have already started. We're now building the embankment as well as filling. 35% of the works have been completed. The artificial island will be completed in phase for the immigration and clearance terminal and related facilities and zip roads. As for the design and basic works of the artificial island, they're basically completed. The works contract for all the facilities have been tendered in September this year. Works will be commencing in early 2014, and the remaining works will be tendered in the 4th quarter of this year and early next year. We're now trying to match the scheduled commissioning date of 2016 for the Hong Kong-Macao-Zhuhai Bridge. Finally, the Tuen Mun Chaklapok Link Road. Now, if we want to travel from the airport to Tuen Mun, we need to use the Tuen Mun Road, Ting Kau Bridge, Tsing Ma Bridge, and the North Lantau Expressway. Upon completion of the link road, there will be a reduction of 22 kilometers, that is 20 minutes of traveling time. Tuen Mun Chaklapok Link Road is 9 kilometers long in full. To the north, 5 kilometers of submarine tunnels linking Tuen Mun and Hong Kong boundary control point with a double tunnel with a diameter of 14 kilometers. And the deepest section is 52 meters below sea level. To construct this longest vehicular tunnel in Hong Kong, we'll use this boring machine with a diameter of 14 meters, about 5 stories of building. It is almost the biggest boring machine in Hong Kong. Tunneling work started in August this year. As for the Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok Link Road, to the south is a 3 kilometers of escalated road linking Hong Kong's boundary control point and North Lantau Expressway so the vehicles can go to the urban areas directly.
The construction works has already commenced in June this year. Overall, the Hong Kong works of the HEZMB started in 2011. The Hong Kong Link Road and Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok link the southern section. These works will be commissioned at the end of 2016 to tie in with the commissioning of the whole bridge. And the northern section of the HKLR will be completed at the end of 2018 to meet the needs of NWNT in terms of transport. The Highways Department has established the Hong Kong Project Management Office. We've got 4 directorate posts at present. 3 of them are supernumerary posts, and 1 is a permanent post redeployed from the Highways Department. And they will lapse from the March or June in 2014. Well, we are proceeding with full steam with various works. The project is complex, it's mega in scale, and it involves onerous workload. We believe that we need to retain the 3 supernumerary posts and to extend the 1 permanent post so that we can provide adequate directorate supervision of the project. So much for my presentation. Thank you, Chairman. Undersecretary, anything to add? No. 8 members have put up their hands. Poon Xiaoping, Kwong Kok Heng, Tan Ka Piu, Frankie Yik, Leung Kwok Hong, Regina Yip, Lo Wai Kwok, Wu Chi Wai. Any other members? Chan Han Pan. 4 minutes each, please. We are all very concerned about the project, so I will allow you more time to speak. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, I have to go to the complaints division at 11:15, so can I be allowed to speak first? All right, no objection from members. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Well, as electrical members, we don't know whether to add in new posts or not. The project is so massive in scale. Well, the 3 governments have to work together. Can you give us the staff establishment of the other 2 sites? What is the comparison? How strong is the workforce of the other 2 sites? How is supervision being done? If we have that information, we can make some comparisons. Secondly, it's a tripartite project. Originally, we paid more, but because of objection from electrical members, the sum has been reduced. My question for the administration. Is it the case that when certain sections of the bridge has been completed by the other side, and then we will make the necessary connections? Is it the case, or should we be pressing really fast with our project because of that? Thirdly, concerning the road in Tuen Mun, this is a special channel. Have you estimated the or have you projected the traffic flow for that road? My 3 questions. Mr. Chow or Undersecretary? Undersecretary, Chairman, on Mr. Leung's first question on the mainland government's staff establishment. There is this main bridge which is overseen by the bridge authority, composed of representatives from the 3 sides. Apart from this main bridge, it connects to 3 areas, Macau, Zhuhai, and Hong Kong. So for these sections, they are being undertaken by the respective sides. So the nature of the projects of the 3 different parties is different. So we can't do a simple comparison. So in our establishment, apart from the head, there will be other heads overseeing the BCF, the TMCL, KL, and the HKLR. So that may not be the case in the other 2 sides. As to the work progress, which should come first and which should come later, actually the works are carried out simultaneously. The construction of the main bridge goes together with the local sections. We hope to commission every part by the end of 2016. So we are carrying out the works in tandem. On the traffic flow, we believe that our works can help divert the increased traffic flow from Tuen Mun to Chak Lap Kok. I am asking about the joint venture. Can you give us details of the establishment of the 2 other sites under the joint venture? Can you provide that information? Yes, we can ask the authority, the bridge authority about it. Yes. Mr. Wong, Poon Siu Ping. Thank you, Chairman. From the television, we know that this is a mega project. It's massive in scale. In principle, I support the extension of the posts. I have 2 questions. In the paper, it says that the Chak Lap Kok section will be commissioned in 2018. But then the CE posts will last till the end of 2017. You said that you will conduct a review of the establishment in 2016. My question is, why don't you extend the contract up till 2018? Why do you have to do it in 2 separate rounds? That's my first question. The second question is about Tuen Mun residents concerned on the impact of the Tuen Mun Western Bypass. You said that you will consult the public to come up with a proposal acceptable to all. How is the progress of the consultation? Or what is the progress? I'll ask the director to tackle the first question and also the second question. Mr. Lau. Thank you, Chairman. Tuen Mun Chak Lap Kok link. We estimate it to be commissioned in 2018. When should we extend? Up to when should we extend the post? Actually, we are not too well informed at the moment. The link will be commissioned in 2018, but there are some follow-up works that need to be done after that time. So works may extend beyond 2018 or 2019. So in 2016, we'll be able to have a better grasp of the progress of works, and we will be in a better position to consider the extension then. And about the Tuen Mun Western Bypass. We have already a proposal supported by local residents, but then later some people were worried that at the northern section there will be a viaduct and they will be posing adverse impact on residents. The views are very strong, and because of this, we are reviewing the timing of the project. We are looking at the traffic situation. What kind of road networks should be put in place in the next few years to cope with the Tuen-Mun traffic demands? So we are reviewing the alignment of the bypass, and once we've come up with a more detailed proposal, we'll again consult the residents. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. I was once an elected member of the Western NT. I'm happy to read about the progress of the Tuen-Mun-Macao link. The government has taken on board our views on this project concerning the connection roads of the bridge and the Tuen-Mun-Macao link. It will be commissioned in 2016 and 2018 respectively. Can you undertake that the projects will be completed on schedule? That's my first question. Secondly, last year, there were fatal accidents because of industrial safety accidents in the HGZM project. How are you supervising the safety of the construction works? Now, in this paper, you propose the extension of certain posts. I support the proposal. I would like to see the project being completed and implemented smoothly. I have this demand. Can the administration arrange for a visit for electrical members to the bridge at an appropriate time? I'm not saying we should visit the project instantly, but at an appropriate time. I would like to take a look at this eye-opening 5-story boring machine. Can you do that? Sorry, the mic is not coming through. The link roads to the bridge and also the southern section of Tuen-Mun-Macao link, our target is to commission it by the end of 2016. That we are working hard towards that goal. As for the northern section of that link, we target to have it commissioned in 2018. So that's very clear. I will defer to the director to tackle the second question about your request for a visit. We've also been thinking about this. Let's find a suitable time to invite members to come along and visit. We'll have to look at the progress of the project to come up with a suitable time. That's very much on our mind too, so we can talk further with the chairman on that. Director, please. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your question. In October last year, there was one industrial accident in the installation of steel plates, and the relevant works were stopped instantly after the accident. Afterwards, we urged the contractor to step up safety. They did risk assessment, and then they came up with safety remedial measures to ensure that the construction works are safe, including ensuring the safety of the working platforms. They are also providing safety training to the workers. The Labor Department found the improvement measures acceptable. So we've rescinded the works suspension order, and we are urging the contractor to implement the safety improvement measures as scheduled. So we attach a lot of importance to worker safety on sites. We will continue to monitor the safety safety of the works.
Mr. Chairman, to guard against industrial accidents is one of the factors for completion on schedule. Point taken. Mr. Chairman, What about the 7 kilometers of submerged section of the project? Is it the first project of its kind for the whole country? I'd like to know whether this is the first example for the whole country. If that's the case, how can we have quality assurance? How can you give members more confidence? And then just now, Mr. Wong Kok Hing asked about the fatal accident relating to the mega cylinder. I was told that one of the causes of the accident was that the skilled technicians and senior skilled technicians imported from elsewhere had communication problems with their local counterparts. So eventually there was this serious accident. You have completed your investigation. Were those allegations true? And up to this moment, for the number of deaths and industrial injuries, may we have the figures up to the latest moment for this whole project? And then for Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok Link Road, let me repeat, we want it to be a free road. That is, no toll will be charged. Mr. Yang, well, for industrial accidents, I think the director can give you more details. He'll elaborate in a moment. And the director can also explain whether or not this is the most complicated project for the whole of China and the highest level of technical expertise is required. At the state level, this is a mega complicated or even world-class project. And such a deep tunnel which can allow big ocean-going container vessels to pass, it's very complicated. The tunnel is very, very deep submarine. So undoubtedly it's a very, very complicated project. Is it the first? Well, the director can answer that question. On various occasions, I explained that for bridges and tunnels, in principle, we'll adopt the cost recovery principle. But of course, we'll put on record the honorable member's remark for reference. Director, Mr. Chairman, the submarine tunnel is built with caissons which had been adopted for 3 tunnels in Hong Kong, 3 cross-harbor tunnels in Hong Kong. It's for sure that such a deep tunnel is the first in China. We have to have quality assurance. So we do have communication with the mainland side. They also have a team to observe all the standards. And through this authority, we have employed an overseas consultant to provide expert support for the construction of such a deep tunnel. As for industrial accidents, as Mr. Tang said, we did import labor, and some imported workers speak Putonghua, and there is a communication problem. After that accident, we ensured that the contractor had completed all training programs, and if the workers observe all they learn from the training programs, there shouldn't be such serious industrial accidents. Well, Mr. Chairman, concerning the tunnel, coincidentally, on the 12th of October, together with a 100-member deputation of young professionals, we visited this factory for the fabrication of prefabricated caissons. We also visited Zhuhai and Macau. Our major visits were related to the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao bridge. Now, it's a very difficult project, 180 meters, and heavier than Liaoning, the biggest carrier of China. So is big as well as sophisticated, and it's also very difficult to transport these caissons to the site. We spent 16 hours to install the 4th caisson. Well, the use of caisson is not a completely new technology, but given such a deep tunnel, the degree of difficulty is really high, so even our compatriots on the mainland side are proud of this project. For such a mega project, we don't just have to look at the technical aspects. Coordination is important among the 3 sites, that is Hong Kong, Zhuhai, and Macau. To do better coordination, there are a lot of complicated and fine works. On behalf of Mrs. Regina Ip, I'd like to ask her a question. She's attending another meeting, so she cannot attend this meeting. Recently, we're very concerned about natural disasters like tsunami and the super typhoon in the Philippines recently. So, given this mega project, what safeguards will there be for natural disasters or catastrophes? Director, in terms of natural disasters, members need not worry. The design is in compliance with the highest standard, both on the mainland and in Hong Kong. A lifespan of 120 years is planned, so all scales of natural disasters have been taken into consideration. Mr. Chairman, as the customs departments of all the 3 sites are involved, and we have to be concerned about vehicular flow and pedestrian flow. Clearance, customs clearance is also a concern. So do you have any clear plans for the actual operations? Mr. Yao? Mr. Chairman, for the boundary control facilities, there will be separate clearance on the 3 sites. That means the boundary control boundary crossing facilities will be similar to those we have at present for the other boundary control points. For vehicular flow, we need to collaborate with the other 2 sites. We're now discussing the matter. When we have more details, we'll report to the transport panel. Mr. Wu Chi-wai? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very simple. I see that the main bridge will be completed in 2016. And of course, to the northwest, we still have the Tumun-Chek-Lap-Kok link, which is to be completed in 2018. I have 2 questions. Given such a mega project, what's the normal work of the chief engineer? Upon completion of the works, how much more time will be required for the follow-up work, like checking of invoices and bills, payments, etc., etc.? Can we have a basic timetable? Secondly, the main works will be completed in 2016. Upon completion of the major works, can the remaining works be taken up by 1 engineer instead of 2? Of course, you have a review in 2016, but I'd like to know how you can match your manpower level with the progress of the project. Director, Mr. Chairman, usually for follow-up work, we need to look at the complexity of the project itself, whether or not there will be many claims and so forth. So, there's no one single simple answer. In our view, 1 year is appropriate. All the three projects are complicated. And even after the commissioning of the bridge, there's still a great deal of follow-up work to do. Now look at the boundary crossing facilities. In its initial stage of operation, a great deal of coordination will still be required between or among the three sides, that is with Zhuhai and Macau. And the repair and maintenance departments will have a lot of follow-up work to do. As for the Hong Kong Link Road, even upon completion, a lot of repair arrangements have to be made. So, in our view, an extension of a year is appropriate. If one engineer is to take up the work of two, that remaining engineer will be overloaded with work. I think the director has misunderstood me. During the construction of the main bridge, you, of course, need all these engineers. From what you said just now, the biggest factor of variance will be the number of claims. Is it because of that you need 2 engineers to handle the follow-up work? Director? Well, Mr. Chairman, the simple answer is yes, because the project is very complicated. There may be controversies in a number of areas, and contractors may be submitting claims. Mr. Chairman, can I ask the director to provide us with some basic information? If they already spot possible areas where contractors may submit claims, can we have the details? Of course, we may win or lose on these claims. What is the chance of winning litigations? Director. Well, in general, geology may be one of the causes of claims because these tunnels and bridges will be affected by the rock strata, that is geological aspects. So usually we will have claims in that regard from the contractors. And there are a number of units are involved. For example, for the artificial island, we may need to have some coordination with the airport authority. And even with small hiccups, contractors may submit claims. So we have to be prepared for claims. Mr. Chairman, we support the proposals in the paper. These personnel are very experienced and they are very valuable to the remaining works. Now, this is the first time I see so many details about the artificial island. But this design is only related to traffic and transport. What about economy? What about bridgehead economy? How can we have good bridgehead economy? We spent so much on the bridge and the roads, so we must not waste our resources. So what about bridgehead economy?
Secondly, on the tolls, the Central-Wan link, we look forward to the building of this link. After this link is completed, well, all along, the Tongchong residents expect the road to be toll-free. Why are we penalizing the Tongchong residents? Well, Tingkao Bridge is toll-free. We hope that when we develop Lantau Island, we have this link, and then the Qingma Bridge should also be made toll-free. Well, what's the government's stance on this? Secretary, please. Mr. Chan's first question about bridgehead economy. We explained before that the bridgehead economy should not be confined to the boundary crossing facilities. We have taken on board the environmental impact of the artificial island and also the constraints on height because of the airport. We can't have massive development there. We have to a certain extent, restrict the development there. The important point is connecting the bridgehead economy with the neighboring areas, and that's why the artificial island should be well connected to Tongchong and to Chek Lap Kok. We've invested a lot into the artificial island. Together with the airport and the boundary crossing facilities, we hope to amalgamate all these facilities and then extend its reach to surrounding areas, including Tuen Mun and Tongchong, and even further away to Kwaichong. So we are not just talking about building more shops or shopping malls on the artificial island. But despite this, at the BCF, we will provide certain amount of commercial facilities for enjoyment by the travelers. As for the tolls, I have explained at other occasions, there are different uses to the Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok link. For people in general, they would be using the public transport there. And as far as licensed bus companies or franchise bus companies are concerned, the government has imposed certain restrictions. And for other freight goods carrier, and it's up to them to decide whether they should take account of that in their costs. So as far as the Qingma Bridge toll is concerned, we don't think that the toll is too high. And our overall principle is we will adopt a cost recovery approach, trying to recover the costs from our investment. Well, perhaps we should not dwell on the cost in this meeting. The objective here is to look at the progress of the projects and whether to extend the several passes. Mr. Frankie Yik. This project is a mega project, and it poses tremendous challenges to the engineering sector. I would support your proposal on the proposed retention of the supernumerary post and extension of one permanent post. I have 2 points to follow up. On the public transport arrangements on the BCP, has the administration talked to the transport sector, including the franchised bus companies, minibus operators, and so on? Have you come up with a preliminary plan? If yes, can you disclose it? If not, then when are you going to start the talks? I've been receiving questions from this trade on this. Now, about the Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok link and also Tuen Mun Western Bypass, the northern section, we know that the first section will be commissioned in 2016 to tie in with the opening of the bridge. And for the northern section, you said that it will be completed in 2018. But then you mentioned that people are concerned about the alignment, and you will further study whether the alignment should be revised. I'm very worried that the project will be completed later than 2018. Now, I understand that we can't employ enough workers. We are short of 6,000 workers. And we hope that if the bypass can be completed, then the workers can be carried from Tuen Mun through the bypass to work on the artificial islands, or else we'll be experiencing a long delay. All right. About public transport arrangements, the 3 governments have established a liaison group to study cross-boundary transport arrangements, the relevant operations, and what kinds of public transport modes should be involved. The 3 governments are discussing the matter. We don't have a defined plan yet, so we're not at liberty to disclose anything at the moment. We know that we should consult the trade, and down the road we would definitely do that. But I don't have the timing yet. But I can say that that is going to be done definitely. Sorry, Undersecretary, for my interruption. Should you be first consulting the trade before you talk to the Chinese government? Well, this is not a one-off exercise. It should be an interactive process. I think we should come up with first a draft blueprint before we talk to the trade. Secondly, perhaps I have not made myself clear just now. In 2018, the whole Tuen Mun Macao link will be completed. In other words, from Central-Wan to Tuen Mun, the road will be completed. Well, when you talked about the northern section, what you actually meant should be the Tuen Mun Western Bypass. We are still at the design stage now. If the Tuen Mun Macao link is completed, then cars can go from Central-Wan all the way to Tuen Mun and even to the northern district. So Mr. Yik can rest assured. Okay, Mr. Li Xiaoyan, next. My first question is, what is the impact of the bridge on the operation of our airport? We're talking about third runway now. From here to Macau Airport is 35 kilometers. But what about from Shenzhen to Macau Airport? Would people be using Shenzhen Airport and Macau Airport instead of Hong Kong Airport in the future? Have you assessed the impact in that regard? Perhaps we should not dwell on the details today, but this is something for our discussion in the future. Secondly, Tuen Mun residents, of course, hope that they can travel directly to the airport. So it seems that they can only do so in 2018. But then the HEZM bridge is going to be commissioned in 2016. And it's disappointing that the last part is completed in 2018. I think we should finish our internal sections first before completing the external sections. Can we advance the completion date for the last section? And what about 2018? Is it going to be completed in the beginning of the year or the end of the year? The bridge is very important to our economy, in particular the logistics industry and our port operations. It is going to connect the Hong Kong airport to Guangdong, to Guangxi, and even Yunnan. It is going to extend the reach of Hong Kong, or the hinterland of Hong Kong, extensively. And it's going to bring huge benefits to our logistics and freight forwarding industries. as to whether Hong Kong's airport will be affected, we are not too worried. The airport users attach a lot of importance on the convenience in transit, so it's not very it's not very probable that travelers are willing to take transit and then to use airports elsewhere. So as to whether we should finish the internal projects first, well, the original idea was to complete all the internal works in 2016 to tie in with the commissioning of the main bridge. But we all know that there was this judicial review case, and the timetable was adjusted. In order that the certain parts of the Hong Kong works can tie in with the opening of the main bridge, we think that we should speed up the works on that part so that they can be completed in 2016. So because of the historical reasons, there was this delay, and I'm sure that members would appreciate that. All right, so much for the discussion on this agenda item. Although 2 members have put up their hands, but I'm not going to allow them to speak now because we've got other agenda items. All right, so much for this item. Thank you very much, Under Secretary. Let's move on to the next agenda item. And that is a project we are all concerned about, and that is the Central-Wan bypass. For this agenda item, apart from the Under Secretary, we have Mrs. Kwok, Project Manager, Major Works Highways Department, another colleague, Mr. Ho Kai Ming, or Mr. Lawrence Ho from the Highways Department. Let's get started. Thank you, Under Secretary. I'll be quick in introducing the project. Because of this rise in costs, we have to seek additional funding support from the LegCo. The increase in costs, one part, has to do with the tunnel construction works. Well, because there is a difference in the conditions of the geology, so hence the increase in costs. And also, as a major part has to do with the increase in provision for price adjustment relating to material costs and manpower costs.
So this is this proposal in simple terms. I'll defer to my colleagues for the progress of the project. Who will do that? I'd like to spend a few minutes on the latest progress of the Central-Wan bypass and Island Eastern Corridor link. This is from Central to North Point, a 4.5 kilometers dual 3-lane carriageway. 3.7 kilometers will be a tunnel. When the bypass is completed in 2017 and ready for commissioning, very quickly we can travel from Central to North Point. Only 5 minutes will be required. At the moment, it's 15 minutes, so there will be huge savings in terms of time. As for the alignment, Central up to Rumsey Street flyover, and then along Central Reclamation 3, and then Wan Chai Development 2, Convention and Exhibition Center, then the former Wan Chai cargo handling area, and then Causeway Bay Typhoon Shelter. Then the tunnel will climb up to the level of the Eastern Corridor, altogether 4.5 kilometers. Now, this computer simulated image shows you the portal at the end, at the central end. Now, this is the North Point portal, again a simulated image. Eastbound lane of Eastern Corridor will be moved towards the sea to make way for the tunnel to climb up to get linked with the Eastern Corridor. Now, altogether 13 construction contracts, 4 completed. Central Reclamation 3, reinstatement of Typhoon Shelter, North Point, as well as the Whitfield Depot reinstatement. All these 4 projects have been completed, and 8 more are underway. Central Interchange, Wan Chai Development 2, we have 4 works under the CEDD, which will build a tunnel for us. As for the Typhoon Shelter section and connection from North Point to Eastern Harbour Crossing, 3 more works are underway. And 1 final contract has not been granted. That is the terminal building, the ventilation facilities, and ancillary works for the tunnel. We would like to grant these contracts at the beginning of next year. Now, let me come to the latest development. This is from IFC. This is the Central Interchange. You see the tunnel works are underway. Typhoon Shelter. There will be a few segments of the tunnel here. So the works are phased. TS1 has already been completed. The seabed has already been reinstated. Now we're with TS2 and TS4. Tunneling works are underway. In between, we have TS3. Upon completion of TS2 and TS4, we'll proceed with TS3 because we'd like to reduce the area of reclamation, although it's temporary reclamation. The former Wan Chai cargo handling area, there are 2 portions. We're now on the eastern side. The western side will be completed after the eastern side. Now, North Point, space vacated will make way for the eastbound lane of the Eastern Corridor. Now, you can see part of the works here. And here you see the position of the tunnel. The tunnel will climb up here to get connected with Eastern Corridor. Now, this is Slip Road 8 under the Victoria Park Road, and then the westbound portion of the bypass. Vehicles from Tai Hang and Tin Hau areas will go directly into the tunnel and reach Central. Now, to the west of the Typhoon Shelter, we've commissioned the CEDD to build the tunnel. Now, you can see that works have already started. Now, this is the partially completed tunnel. This is what's inside. So much for the latest progress. Now, this time, we're asking for more funds. Let me give you the details. The approved funding level is $28.1 billion. For the vertical wall and the foundations, as costs have risen, we would like to have an additional funding of $975 million. And then for the increase in provision for price adjustment, an additional $6.9 billion. And then there are also increases in costs for other works items, totaling $725.3 million. So the total increase will be $8.659 billion. The drawdown from contingencies is $725.3 million. So what we're actually asking for will be $7.9343 billion. So let me explain why we need these funding increases. As I mentioned just now, you can see the cross-section of the tunnel. On the two sides you have the vertical separation walls and then piles all the way down to the bedrock to support the whole tunnel. The bedrock was expected to be as deep as the blue line here. That's the previous projection. But when we actually carried out foundation works, we discovered that some were deeper, some were shallower. A discrepancy of around 5 kilometers or meters, 5 meters, or 5%, a discrepancy of 5%. Therefore, the cost of the foundation works have risen by about 10% when compared with the projection in 2009. So all together will have an increase of $975.3 million. As for preparation or provision for price adjustment, I have to see that for public works projects, the budget covers the basic budget, the contingency fees, as well as provision for price adjustment. For the basic budget, when we presented our forecast, we used the level of the prevailing wages and material costs for our calculation. Precisely during the construction stage, there are bound to be fluctuations in terms of wage levels and material costs. In 2009, we estimated what those costs would be, plus the basic budget and contingency payment. The overall cost was given on money of the day terms. At that time, our figure was $28.1 billion. And every year, we adjusted the figures in accordance with the prevailing commodity prices. And then once every 6 months, we submitted papers to the PwC to explain the latest figures. Now let's look at the situation in 2009 when we prepared the budget. At that time, we forecast that between 2009 to 2013, there will be an annual adjustment of 2%. And then by 2014 to 2019, there will be an annual adjustment of 3%. As for the actual circumstances, in 2009 is 3.1%, 2010 2.9%, 2011 5.9%, and then 2013 to 2017 an annual rise of 6%, and then 2018 to 2022 5%. Very different from our original projections. Now let me use a curve to show you the changes. The blue line represents the projected changes in 2009. As for the pink line is the projection today. So you can see the hefty increases. And then let me show you the cash flow. You'll see that in 2009-13 to 2017-18 will be reaching the peak of spending. Let me give you another example. 2015-16 as an example. At first, we estimated that provision for price adjustments would be 19% approximately. But today, our projection is 43%. So it's quite an increase. Well, let us look back at 2009. The basic budget plus contingencies, $24 billion. Price adjustments, $3.5 billion. So given the adjustment factors now, it will be more than $10.4 billion. If you do a subtraction, you see that we need $6.9 billion this time, additional funding. So basically, it's because of the first three items for tunnel cost increases and more provision for price adjustments that we're asking for additional funding. But of course, part of the total will be covered by the previous reserves. So the actual amount asked for will be $7.9 billion only. Now, a number of members would like to speak. All right, any more? I have to control our time. Altogether, 7 members would like to speak. I can only give you 3 minutes each. I hope that you'll focus on price adjustments, all right? As for works details, road network, and so forth, please leave your remarks or questions to other occasions because there will be other opportunities for us to follow up on those issues. Dr. Low? Mr. Chairman, apparently the administration is asking for quite an adjustment. We're told that the tunnel cost has risen because of technical causes and complexity of works. I don't think we have much disagreement on that, but for provision for price adjustment, we should refer to slide 18. In 2009, they had some projection about price adjustment, and now they have given us the reality. And there's a huge discrepancy between the two sets of figures. Well, even though we find the increases very hefty, there's no way we can argue with them because it's reality. I think I'll support their funding proposal because the Central-Wan bypass is very much needed by us. It will be a very important trunk road for improvement. Well, every day I suffer from traffic congestion after work. Of course, I get off work between 11 p.m. to 12 noon. But I understand that during the daytime, it's very congested. Now, we have 5 railway projects, plus Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, plus Central-Wan bypass. there are a lot of controversies with the judicial review and a lot of historical factors.
So you've come up with projected completion time, but we're short of construction workers. Will there be further delay? What do the contractors think about the construction worker situation, particularly in relation to the Central-Wan bypass project? On the work progress, the paper already mentions that the tunneling work beneath the Wan-Chai Development Phase 2, while 40% of the work has been completed. As for the temporary reclamation project near Causeway Bay Typhoon Shelter, 35% of the works have been completed. We are dividing up the works into 13 construction contracts, and 12 have already commenced, and the progress has been satisfactory so far. For the remaining one contract, we hope to commence it in the first quarter of next year. Well, half of the works in the high-risk projects have been completed, i.e. submarine projects and works beneath the ground level. So we find the progress of work satisfactory, and we hope to commission the project by 2017. Mr. Pon Xiaoping. Chairman, we've gone so far, so we must go ahead with the rest of the work. The administration explained about the increases in costs and also the problems with the ground works. The project is going to be completed in 2017. It's still some years away. You asked for an additional $900 million for the increase in cost for the tunnel construction works, but then only 35% of the tunnels construction works have been completed. How can you undertake that no additional funding request will be required? Would you be encountering tunnel grounds problem in the future, and there will be a rise in construction costs? Also, there was an accident in the tunnel construction works because you have used a different construction methods to improve the safety of the construction work. You have also enhanced safety for the workers. Can you tell us specifically what you have done? Thank you, Chairman. Since some of the tunnel works are still pending, will there be a possibility that we will ask for additional funding? Now, I've laid out the progress of works just now, and half of the high-risk items have been completed. We will continue to supervise the progress of works. We will exercise control over each and every detail. So the increase in costs is the latest figures we have. So we are confident that this funding application will cover everything we need, unless there are major changes in the economic environment. So we are asking for all we need in the future. What about the safety problem? Can you be brief in your reply? After the accident on the hanging hooks, we asked the contractor to suspend work immediately and conduct inspections. The contractor was cooperative and prudent and did a review, and we changed the hooks already. And not only that, we are also supervising the contractors and our clerk on site to step up their supervision work. For large-scale projects, it's reasonable that there may be variation in costs. There are 13 contracts, 12 have been signed, and 4 have been completed, and around 30% have been completed. Now, there is a difference of $1 billion from 2009 to 2013 concerning the tunnel construction works, but the biggest increase comes from the provision for price adjustment. Now, Chairman, we don't just have this project. We've got many other infrastructure works going on. So if every project comes back with a request for have to increase it in cost, then that's not good. So should we be conducting a review on the way that the project estimates are being done? Now, we are seeing a 30% increase in the cost from 2009 to 13. Will there be further increases when the project for the project in 2017? So that's my question for the administration. Undersecretary. Well, I'll first talk about the unique characteristics of this project. We applied for funding from the LegCo in April 2009. The economy at that time was really bad because of the financial tsunami worldwide. Let me quote some remarks from the FS in the budget back then. He said that in 2009, it would be a difficult year. Internal demands and external trade would be stagnated. The GDP for 2009 will decrease by 2 to 3%. Chairman, I understand all these. That's all right, because the difference for the basic works is just $1 billion. But for the provision for price adjustment, should we review the mechanism? Well, when we prepared the project estimates, that was a low inflation environment or zero inflation environment. When the economy picked up later, the inflation rate soared and wages rose too. And because of this, the development panel makes an adjustment once every half year. If inflation slows down or the economy slows down, the estimates will be adjusted downwards too. So we are now asking for the maximum provision. That's my first point. The member asked whether there should be some adjustment to the mechanism. All right, I'll take your comment back to the development panel for them to consider. Dr. Kenneth Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask about the number 8 slip road project. The works commenced in March. I'm particularly concerned about the section near Victoria Park. We will be losing 20,000 square feet of the Victoria Park because of this project. Some facilities have to be relocated too. And some 500 trees have to be felled, and 200 trees have to be relocated too. So I want to ask this. We want the project to be completed in 2017. Should we be expediting the work on this slip road? For removal of the trees from the Victoria Park, should we be devoting more resources to conserve these trees? And should we not be removing or relocating the trees to faraway places as far as Yuen Long, because that will affect the health of the trees? Now, for grade 5 trees, which are very healthy, if you are doing all these relocation exercises, their health may deteriorate. So is there a possibility of relocating the trees to within the same district? Because there are also cost considerations and other complex issues that need to be tackled. I want to focus on the number 8 slip road and its impact on the relocation of trees. Well, our focus here today should be on the adjustments in the approved project estimates. All right, Undersecretary, can you be brief in your answer? Well, I'll defer to the Director to give you a brief reply. Briefly. We have a prudent mechanism in terms of tree relocation. We will be spending $21 million on removing the trees. We have asked tree experts and independent tree consultants to help us in reviewing our procedures. Our tree relocation procedures, all these have been put into the contract. I'm sure that Mr. Chen is aware of this. As for relocating the trees to some nurseries, there are quite a big amount of trees at Victoria Park now. If we are to relocate the trees to within the park, then that's not possible. So that's why we have to relocate them to the nurseries. Mr. Christopher Chung, I have 2 questions. Number 8 slip road. Well, shouldn't you be adjusting your work plans earlier? We think that number 8 slip road is necessary because we've got a tunnel all the way stretching from Wan Chai to Central-Wan. So we are already cutting down a number of the traffic flow in Causeway Bay, and I don't see the need for the number 8 slip road. There's nothing much we can do about the increase in the construction costs. My second question is, would you consider doing something at the district level? The district councils have asked for the noise barriers to be extended to the Wafu Center and the Tongshui Road, and to the west, you should be extending the noise barriers too. Now, with the increase in provisioning costs, can you make adjustments like those I mentioned? Director, about the necessity for number 8 slip road. The alignment for the Central-Wan bypass includes number 8 slip road, and that was the outcome of lengthy discussions and studies. We think the number 8 slip road is necessary, or otherwise, around Tin Hau and Causeway Bay, the vehicles have to go to Tongshui Road before they can go to the Island Eastern Corridor and then go to the Central-Wan bypass. then that will create a lot of congestion in around the Kong-Zhuhai Road.
Well, let's not go into the details. Please go to the noise barriers immediately. Oh, yes. It's true that the local communities would like to extend the noise barrier to Providence Center. But our works project actually stops at City Garden. And the section by the side of Eastern Corridor will be amended. As a result, we can have space for a noise barrier. But in front of Providence Center, existing roads will not be affected. These existing roads were built many years ago. They cannot support noise barriers. Mr. Wong Kok Heng? Thank you, Chairman. They're asking for additional funding this time. I think we have to accept their proposals because the works are already halfway. We have already started, so we have to support them. But I'd like to know, after this increase, can we put a full stop to the funding exercise? Will they ask for more in future? Mr. Yao? As far as we can see from the latest progress, the project has been completed to a great extent. So at the moment, we don't see any need for further funding applications. Mr. Wong Kok Heng? Well, then I will support them. Anyway, when they come back, we'll have to support them. Mr. Tan Ka-Piu? Mr. Chairman, I, of course, understand the factor of price adjustments, and that takes up the major part of the sum that they're asking for, that is around $8 billion. Now, apart from this particular project, will they come to us again with a very alarming bill? Now, you see, given this funding level, they're telling us that there will be a toll levy. Mr. Yao? Well, I believe this project itself would be economically viable. But please tell us, will toll be charged in future? I really have to go back and look into the details because some other departments are also involved. As far as I understand, there are not that many other works projects that are similar to this. Yes, we do have some railway projects. Well, please give us a paper on whether or not you come back to us with another alarming bill. And then you mentioned economic benefits. Well, just now we discussed the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge and the Tuen Mun Chek Kok Link. Are you saying that those will not have economic benefits? Well, Mr. Yao, if you have different treatment for different projects, there may be problems. Well, Mr. Gary Fan, well, of the 10 major infrastructure projects, 5 have already experienced overspending. So in future, we're going to get alarming bills as well. You see, the overall cost of those projects have increased from $7.9 billion to $41.4 billion. Now, we see that there are discrepancies in the costs of the piling works, foundation works, etc. can Mr. Yao give us the details? In 2009, manpower planning as well as material costs were too conservative in their budget. So can Mr. Yao confirm that they were actually too conservative in budgeting in the past? That's why we have such huge discrepancies now. Mr. Chairman, let me say something about our mechanism, whether or not it is too conservative. As we explained in 2009 when we came to LegCo for funding, we based our forecast on the prevailing inflation level and wage level at that time. Now from our slides, you see that in 2009 we did project into the 5 following years. Please remember that in 2009, those were the prevailing circumstances. After that, our economy rapidly picked up. Wages and material costs have been rising rather rapidly. And you see, even in actual terms, now you see the yellowish brown bars. Those were the actual scenarios. So much more than projected. It's not that our budget was too conservative. The overall reality was like that. That's why once every half a year, we make adjustments so as to catch up with reality. Now, in the coming years, if figures are to drop, we'll also adjust our forecast downwards. Just now, I explained that in terms of civil engineering works, particularly those involving submarine and subterranean works, costs tend to be higher. Soil texture variations will also cause cost changes. And in Hong Kong, we're subject to quite a great deal of geological changes. Previously, we did conduct a lot of investigation work into the soil texture. Now, this tunnel is built on sea. In particular, at the location of the Causeway Bay Typhoon Shelter, we got less information because back then, if we carry out investigation work at that location, the vessels will be affected. Mr. James Hin, Mr. Chairman, many colleagues said that they have to accept their funding proposals rather unwillingly. I accept their 2009 proposals. Should I also accept this increase from $3 billion to $10 billion? I've not decided yet. If we had imported labor much earlier, we would have had saved more costs. Now, amongst this increase of $7 billion, how much is related to wages? So there are only two factors, two components, wages and material costs. So how much is due to wage rises? Now, if the overall wages in Hong Kong have risen, was that increase the same as the increase that you are asking for? Or is it because they're unable to recruit enough workers? Do you understand what I'm asking? All right. The Undersecretary said that the bypass would be commissioned in 2017. In the coming years, if they still cannot recruit sufficient workers and wages rise fourfold, and you don't get this increase in funding, will you import labor? Otherwise, you will not be able to honor your pledge. Mr. Yao, perhaps I should defer to the director on wages. Is it purely because of wages? I don't think so. No, not wages alone. You also mentioned material costs. I just want to know the ratio. Director, I only have 1 minute. Any figures? Can labor importation solve the problem? The arrangement at present is like this. We attach importance to giving priorities to local workers. If some contractors fail to recruit enough workers locally, they can resort to the Labor Department's supplementary labor scheme to import labor. Oh, so you're confident that the problem can be solved? Once every 6 months, the government will review the factors concerned. A number of factors, a whole basket of factors will be considered. The government economist conducts the review, and those figures are from him. Mr. Chairman, I absolutely cannot accept that. Well, there's a discrepancy of $7 billion. I asked them for the details and the causes, and they mention a basket of factors. That's absolutely unacceptable. I want figures. Well, let me elaborate. We also conduct some analyses ourselves. Starting from mid-2009, when we applied for funding from the LegCo, up to June this year, we observed that the wages of some construction workers have increased by about 30-odd%. As for the indices of construction material costs, there's also an increase. Well, please give us a written supplementary paper. Mr. Chairman, just now some colleagues would like the noise barrier to be extended to Providence Center, but were told that they're not going to heed our advice because the roads around Providence Center were old and could not support the noise barriers. Now, we've been asking for papers, but ever since September, I've only been getting this paper. We don't have any scientific reports with data. We have to explain to our Providence Center residents why that's impossible. As for air quality improvement systems, another $700 million will have to be spent. Why? Because it's state-of-the-art technology or what? And then for paragraph 10D, it is said that the mitigation facility cost will be reduced by $84.7 million. I'd like to know whether future residents will be affected by noise. Director? Concerning the extension of the noise barrier to Providence Center, Mr. Chairman, I know the reason. I just want to have data. Well, they have given us an essay. I want figures. Well, please give us a paper. All right. In fact, we've already submitted a paper to you. We've prepared a report for the residents. The report has already been passed to the residents. All right? What about so that's on the increase of $700 million. That's to reduce the emission of nitrogen dioxide in the tunnel. $700 million. After we've applied for funding, we've kept in liaison with the residents, and the authorities did say that the emission facilities in the tunnel are very near to residential blocks.
So they hope that we can further improve the. So, Chairman, I would like to know the percentage of reduction here using the $700 million. Mrs. Kwok? So the $700 million is an increase and not a decrease. What I meant is a reduction in the level of nitrogen dioxide. The way we're doing it is this. We would add a system to improve the air quality. We expect to reduce the level of nitrogen dioxide and also particulates by 80%. Mr. Porter, Mr. Gary Fan mentioned this about the construction cost. The increase in tunnel construction cost by $970 million. The site investigation was conducted in 2009, is that right? Oh, in 2009 and before then. Before 2009, we also did some site investigation. We have also a database containing information on other site investigation works. How old was such information? They were conducted in various years. You said that there were great changes in the geology. Would there be huge changes in, let's say, several years' time? Are you just doing a perfunctory work back those days? You are conducting site investigation point by point, is that right? Is it true that there may be variations because there are some sites which were not covered under your investigation work? Yes, we've done investigation along the entire alignment, but we have did it point by point. We did it at the key points or key sites. And because of the topography there, we couldn't do as many points as we wished. For example, in the typhoon shelter, we have to maintain that there is normal marine transport. We didn't do much site investigation in that part. We had to strike a balance. So we had to strike a balance between how much points that we would do site investigation and our estimates. All right, on your adjustment, it is very big, and you explained that the 2009 economy was on the low side. Well, there was great discrepancy from 2018 to 2020. You are cutting the increase from 6% to 5%. Are you estimated that the prices will drop in those periods? Mrs. Kwok. We are coming up with this estimate based on the macroeconomic environment. And that was based on the Treasury's estimates too. We don't have a crystal ball in our hand, but the estimates seem to be very arbitrary. I don't see any reason for the drop in the prices. Undersecretary, please. Well, perhaps the member is referring to this chart that was compiled by the government economist and the Treasury. They projected the economic environment and our changes in commodity prices and so on. The high inflation environment will not last long. And according to their estimates, for a period. In the future, the prices will stay at a certain level, and then they will drop after a certain period. So that's the estimates for the time being, but then adjustments will be made once every half year. And we will come up with estimates of various projects based on this same formula. Albert Chen, please. Overspending here is for the entire project. Mr. Fan talked about the overspending in 5 projects out of the 10 major infrastructures. And there is an overspending of $100 billion for five of these projects. There is an overspending of $14 billion, $104 billion, of over 70% increase. This is a very grave problem, and it goes to show that the government made serious mistakes in project estimates and also spending control. We must hold someone responsible for such mistakes. In the 90s, when the government came up with this list of 10 major infrastructures, the estimate was $160 billion. And they came up with various control measures, setting up a special dedicated committee, and they hired many overseas experts who should be responsible for coordinating the projects. And we have come up with a new budget approach using the MOD, money of the day calculation method. Now, for the airport, it was overspending because of project estimates, rise in wages and material costs. And there was also because of the contract variations, there was much overspending. Now, for this time round, this whole huge overspending, what is the cause? Can you come back with a paper to explain to us, not just on this particular project, but for every other project as well? What the wages, the material cost, and the contract variations, and so on. The variations may be because of the design, variations in design, mistakes made in geological studies, and so on. All these factors have to be listed out. We have to look at them project by project. For 5 projects, there is an overspending of over $100 billion. What are the real reasons? Then we may have to overhaul the project estimate methods in the future. And the overspending means a collapse in the project estimates mechanism of the government. What are the reasons? Is it because the experienced staff have departed from the government? Or is it because the new recruits are trying to come up with new designs with more grand designs, and they want to, and hence the huge increase in costs? Please give us a paper to explain. Please give us a paper to explain. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, Mr. Michael Ten sounds ridiculous to me. Well, actually, in the construction cost, wages take up a small proportion only. Well, there are fatal accidents. Don't try to stir up troubles. The biggest problem is that you've not been getting accurate information from your studies. And you have to bring in experts to rectify the mistakes. That's number 1. Well, it's not right to say that the wages are to account for the rise in the construction cost. Please don't belittle the workers anymore. Well, there is overproduction in steel materials. Can you go and talk to these contractors to ask them to reduce the prices? Well, I have a question here, which is very simple. Mr. Albert Chen doesn't understand. Before the key infrastructures were put up, we didn't have so many Chinese enterprises in Hong Kong. Now we've got so many China-funded enterprises here in Hong Kong. We don't have any bargaining power with them. Can we tell them that you have made mistakes in your design, in your layout plans, and your geological studies? You don't dare to bargain with these Chinese enterprises. Can you give us some materials on how you are bargaining with these contractors? I want to know how much you are paying out to these contractors. In the past 3 terms of government, you didn't bother to build major construction projects during a deflation period, but you rather chose to do it during a high inflation period. That's ridiculous. No government will do that. All governments will embark on infrastructure projects during a low inflation period to try to create jobs for the workers. So it's only our government acted this way. Well, don't point the fingers at the workers. Members, it's now 12:42. I plan to extend the meeting to 1 p.m. The last member to ask question is Dr. Kwok Ka-ki, and the next agenda item is about Universal Accessibility Program, and is also asking for funding for the next year. So I hope that you will be strict with your time. Dr. Kwok Ka-ki, next, please. Well, this increase is really unacceptable. The 3.7 kilometers tunnel spends the most, and around $10 billion for 1 kilometer in construction costs. It's record-breaking. For Turkey, there is this tunnel above the sea. The Japanese are funding them, and we are talking about a $10 billion project. It seems that the contractors are taking advantage of us. Well, is the contractor a Chinese, China-funded contractor? Well, it is a conglomerate. Some of them are Chinese enterprises, some are local companies, and some are overseas companies. So the percentage of Chinese contractors, mainland contractors, many of the companies are joint ventures. So what's the percentage of the mainland-funded companies in the consortia? In the terms of the total number of contractors, around 5. 5 of them are from the mainland. What is the percentage of works taken up by them? It varies from one contract to another. Well, okay, let's not waste any more time. Please write us a paper.
Okay.
In 2009, we already got this provision for adjustments, price adjustments. That is item O. You've already envisaged certain expenses. Now this time you've overspent very seriously. That means all your provisions in the past went down the drain. You got this increase of 28%. So I'd like to know more about this vertical separation wall. as well as the foundation works. In fact, there are increases in other items as well. At that time, who was responsible? Is that person still participating in the project? Any punishment? The forecasts or budget was so wrong. Is it that our officials will not be held accountable with such rising costs? Well, let me clarify one point. In this funding increase, as we explained, 80% was due to price adjustment. Only 11% is directly related to actual changes in the works. So it's not like what Dr. Kwok understood. It's not that our engineers have made wrong projections or calculations. Mrs. Kwok, well, I can answer this very quickly. Well, we have no time for that. We have a tendering system. No official can privately grant any contract or do any private calculation or assessment. Well, we are badly behind schedule at the moment. I've been very lenient already. Mr. Chairman, I hope that we can follow up on this issue in future. In fact, a few days ago, the PWSC did discuss tendering and assessment. A special meeting was convened. Colleagues should have asked these questions on that occasion. I have to stop you here. Mr. Chairman, I fully agree with you. I think it's more appropriate for all these issues to be discussed in the PWSC. Yes, we can explain at PWSC meetings. And please give some papers to the PWSC. All right, so much for this item. Let's proceed to the next item on the agenda, Universal Accessibility Program. Hands up, please. I have to control the time. We only have less than 15 minutes to go. Undersecretary, can we do this? Now, this is not a new program. It's launched last year. And now you are going to tell us what will be done next year. And Undersecretary, your report has already set out some details. I'll give you 2 minutes to do an introduction. Please be concise. I saw a number of hands already from our colleagues. Mr. Kong? All right, Mr. Kong will speak. Mr. Chairman, I'll highlight certain points. In August last year, the CE launched this program. In fact, for pedestrian walkways, we've always been providing barrier-free access facilities. Now, this paper proposed to enhance the existing efforts. Ramps will enjoy the same priority as escalators or lifts in future. We'll consider lifts in future as well. When the program was launched last year, we invited the public in October to propose locations for lifts. Altogether, 250 pedestrian passageways had been proposed. Last year, the Finance Committee set up a dedicated head for subvention, is 6101 TX, with a cap of around $75 million. Now, this program contains 2 parts. 160 items are technically feasible. 30-odd had commenced work. In this financial year, another 30 items can commence. And in the next financial year, there'll be another 30. And then for the remaining 60, design work is underway. and will proceed to tendering. So all items have proceeded as scheduled. All the way up to 2018, these items will be completed in batch, in phase. As for new proposals from the public, for the first half of this year, we consulted the 18 district councils. All district councils support the new policy. In every district, 3 locations had been given priority. And at the end of June this year, we started our feasibility studies for these 50 priority items. And then we'll report back to the district councils with technical feasibility and support from the district councils. We'll proceed to design and actual works. Everything is on schedule up to the moment. We hope that in 4 years' time we can complete all these priority items. Colleagues, now is already 12:50. I have 8 colleagues on the list. So I'll extend the meeting by another 10 minutes, but I need your support for that extra 10 minutes. All right? Agreed. Wong Kok-heng, Tan Kap-Piu, Michael Tin, Poon Siu Ping, Paul Tse, Kwok Wai-Kang, Christopher Chung, and Chen Han-Pan. I'd also like to remind you that this project will go to the development panel on the 26th of November. And then on the 18th of December, they'll go to the PWSC. And then in January next year, they'll go to the Finance Committee. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for you to follow up on the project and ask questions and express views. So please sympathize with me. Time is running out. All right, 2 minutes per member. Please be concise and precise. First, Wong Kok-heng. Mr. Chairman, I strongly ask the administration to include the pedestrian footbridge in North Point into the whole program. I put forward this proposal a certain time before, but were rejected. 10 odd street sleepers were actually sleeping there. If we do not accept that footbridge into this universal accessibility program, I'm worried that this Tong Shui Road, King's Road footbridge will become a black spot. If you are not to install a lift there, it is really difficult to understand. I'll give a brief answer. Now, whether or not a certain location is frequented by street sleepers, making it a street sleepers paradise, depends on a number of factors. Mrs. Kwok, we went on a site inspection together with Mr. Wong. After that visit, we went back to our department for further consideration. There are certain difficulties. To the south of the bridge, there is this linkage with a building. And the pavement there is already very narrow. If we build a lift there, the remaining space will not be sufficient to cope with the existing pedestrian flow. So that's technically not feasible. Mr. Tan Kap-Piu? Well, with a unique policy and an independent account, colleagues can discuss whether or not to continue to support this program. With 7,000 odd programs, or 2,750 proposals were received. But then deeds of mutual covenant may stand in the way of such proposals. The link read, the housing department may also be involved. TPS blocks may also pose a problem. I'd like to know what policies do you have to resolve such scenarios. Yes, Mr. Tang is correct. This program is to handle pedestrian footbridges, tunnels, and other pedestrian facilities under the Highways Department. Some proposals have exceeded the jurisdiction of the Highways Department, and sometimes we need the consent of the owners. Mr. Tang mentioned the Link Reed, the Housing Authority, the MTRCL, and private owners as well. Under the Housing Authority, we have PRH estates. So if a particular proposal involves a PRH estate, special consideration will have to be made by the HA, for example. For works progress, timetable, feasibility, and so forth, they're also considering the same factors as we. Now, we face a difficulty here. Sometimes the title of the land is not that clear. Sometimes other factors have to be rationalized. So we may not be able to do it immediately. Mr. Michael Tian? Mr. Chairman, for this program, the Bureau understands that I previously asked the Bureau about another case. Some sites were not certain who's responsible. Take, for example, a footbridge. Sometimes we don't know whether it belongs to the government or the private sector. In the past 12 months, I have been handling one case. Overall, I don't know how many such cases we have in Hong Kong. I don't know how you're going to solve the problem. Say, which departments should we approach if we receive such a case? Mr. Yao? Well, how many sites are of uncertain ownership? Well, we do have such cases. We are looking into the cases one by one in order to decide how to solve it. What I meant was, now for the government-owned footbridges, you of course have a record. Where there is a number, we're sure that it belongs to the government. But what if there's no number, no serial number? Well, basically, they come under the jurisdiction of the Highways Department. So basically, they belong to the government. But in some cases, the structure looks like government-owned. But then, when we dug up government records, we did not see any record of government ownership. So we really need to have more time to handle the matter. Mr. Peng Xiuping? Thank you, Chairman. I basically support the funding proposal. Now, this is for 2014-15, 30 items. How do you set these priority items under the 18 district councils? And what about the manpower required? I'm concerned about workers' safety. Well, for the 18 districts, we did not pick priority items for them. Well, basically, we left it to the district councils to choose their own priority items. We suggested that the district councils picked 3 for us to work upon. As for worker safety, You asked whether we're going to hurry with our works. In fact, we're not saying that we want to complete all these items within a short period of time. There are considerations like worker safety. That's why I said that these works items would only be completed in phase in the next 4 years. Mr. Portier?
Thank you, Chairman. In the last agenda item, we talked about a mistake in the side investigation work involving huge sums of money, $970 million. Now, for this particular program, a lot of people are going to benefit, and we asked the 18 district councils to choose 3 projects each. While the number is grossly inadequate, of course, support the funding. Would the government consider substantially increasing the number of such works? For example, in Kowloon East, the program is particularly beneficial for the elderly residents there. Would the government expedite the progress of works and expedite the allocating the funding? A member also talked about footbridges not under the jurisdiction of the Highways Department. Would the government consider those footbridges as well? 2 points. We would want to expedite the work ourselves to provide more convenience to members of the public. But then members also expressed the worry that if all the projects are taken forward in a short period of time, then there are concerns on the construction manpower situation, not just the construction workers, but also the professionals. So we have to take that into account as well. Secondly, can we expand the scope of the program further? Well, we hope that we will proceed with this batch first, and then we will look at the situation before considering expansion. For these lift towers, these are basic works. They are very different from major projects like reclamation works. The complexity is very different. So that can be handled by basic technicians at the basic level. Well, this program is a good thing and should warrant our support. But members also talked about 3 projects in each district. There are big districts and small districts. In the Eastern District Council, there are 37 seats. For district councils with more seats, can we allocate more resources to them so that they can build more than 3, well, they can have more than 3 projects? Would more quota be allocated to districts with bigger population? The second question relates to the MTRC Corporation. How many stations are still without lifts? As for the Housing Authority, can they expedite the work of adding lifts and making access ways more accessible? Chairman, we leave it up to the district councils to make their selections. The district councils will be in a better position to know which sites are in most need. Of course, I understand that the population in each district differs. But then the locations needing these AFA facilities are not proportional to the population size either. So if members have other yardsticks, we'll be happy to take heed of that. Now, as for MTRCE, they have their own plans for installing lifts. 90% of the MTR stations have BFA facilities, and 70% of the stations have 2 exits with BFA facilities. The MTRC has a customer-friendly or customer satisfaction program, which will be taking forward such work. Mr. Christopher Chung, next, please. There are the list of projects suggested by the district councils. For the 160 projects, can you give a list of the project sites, the progress, the progress of works, when works are going to be started and completed, and so on? I also want to raise that, say, in Wan Chai, and there is only one escalator going up, and it falls within a private building. And people in wheelchairs and the people with PWDs couldn't go up the escalators. There are many people going to see performances there and so on. So this is quite ridiculous. So the district council may not take care of that. So would the government consider that? Under Secretary, anything to add? For existing footbridges or tunnels, if there is no ramp or lift, we are definitely going to install BFA facilities. But if there is already a ramp, in the past, we wouldn't be adding any lift. But then under the UA program, we would add a lift. Well, but then the demand is so huge. And under the new or expanded program, the district councils will prioritize the sites within their districts, and then we will take forward the projects. Mr. Chen Hanpang, well, some 2,000 proposals fall under the ambit of other organizations. I understand that the government is not in a position to handle those. But then the government should have influence over these other organizations. Say, for example, MTRC, the government is the biggest shareholder of that company. We've mentioned many times, asked them many times to install BFA facilities, and they decline to do that. So can the government try to wield more influence over these organizations? Thank you, Chairman. Take MTRCL as an example. Actually, they do have a plan to install BFA facilities, and they have taken on board members' views and the government's suggestions. So the MTRCL does have a clear plan on installing lift towers. The lift may not be installed in one or two particular stations, and they have explained because of constraints of the sites. It will be difficult for them to find suitable access for installing such lift towers. Members, we have a tight schedule today. So much for our agenda, for this agenda item. For two of the matters discussed today, they involve funding requests. The first one is about the Central-Wan bypass and the Island Eastern Link Corridor. And that is an amount for $7.9 billion. And for this UA program, $567 million is requested. I don't hear any objection from members on these applications. So can I take it that members all support the funding requests? Yes. All right, we'll relay the same to the relevant subcommittees. All right, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, Under Secretary and your team. Yes, please give us a list when you go to the PWSC.